I'm still thinking, of course, about this problem, this objection I've received on many occasions, even from AI, about my theory of quantum gravity and why neutrons descend in gravitational fields, why a neutron will drop like a stone in a gravitational field, whereas an electron and a proton will exhibit different behaviors. Electrons will sort of float around in vacuum chambers and never really drop to the surface. Protons, likewise, will go off in different directions and not really drop like a penny or like a classical object or anything like this, but neutrons will. So this is seen to undermine to some extent my model that electrons in the background are mediating the gravitational force, and I've been looking more into the strong nuclear force, specifically the residual strong nuclear interaction, this interaction mediated by charged pions within the nucleus that binds the neutrons within the nucleus together with the protons. Because a neutron is, of course, a neutrally charged particle, it has no excessive charge, ostensibly at least. There's no really good reason why it should stay in the nucleus at all. If it's neutrally charged, of course, why would it not simply behave like a neutrino and just drop straight out of the nucleus past the electron density out of the atom and so on? So the answer that we've come up with so far as a solution to this is that the neutron is able to interact electrostatically on some level. The neutron, after all, is composed of charged particles. It's composed of 3 quarks. It's a hadron, which is the name we give for particles composed of 3 quarks. So it's composed of 2 down quarks and an up quark. An up quark having positive 2/3 charge, and the down quarks having negative 1/3 charge each. So what we must surmise, I think, is going on is that these positively and negatively charged pions that are sort of produced, these virtual particles that are produced within the nucleus in the strong interaction, these are exchanged between protons and neutrons, and specifically these pions are acting upon the quarks within the nucleus. Within the neutrons, sorry, which are also within the nucleus, but that's sort of a side point. Building on this, by extension, what we can sort of surmise about the behavior of free neutrons in a gravitational field is that the electrons in the background that I described, these gravitational electrons, may be having some influence over the up quark within the neutron, while also not experiencing so much resistance necessarily from the 2 down quarks, which are also on the neutron. That I suspect that the down quarks might be spinning, and that at the front of the neutron heading downwards, we get the up quark with positive 2/3 charge heading into this progressively higher density of electrons. The electrons becoming more numerous, hence the background negative charge even becoming stronger, and the negatively charged down quarks just spinning around, so their ability to resist particles in the background is attenuated. Firstly, because they're at a higher elevation, very slightly, than the up quark on the neutron, which is headed downwards, and head into a period of greater attraction over that up quark, and it is spinning, also allowing them to experience less force between themselves and the background electrons. That's sort of the best idea I've managed to surmise about that so far. And I've said that in a previous video. But this has led me into other considerations concerning the strong force, and I've always had very tentative ideas concerning the strong force, and I've never really believed in this idea of colour charge. I'm a bit uncomfortable with believing in the idea of gluons as particles that are different or differentiable from the photon. I mean, after all, if you look at the standard model, the gluon, except for this colour charge stuff, so called, they have exactly the same properties as photons. And I'm looking at some of the experiments they've done at CERN, for example. These, I think, were experiments done in the, what does it say on here? When were these done? Is it the Large Electron-Positron Collider at CERN? Was that back in the 1980s or something? Or for all I know it's the 1960s, but yeah. So what they did is they were colliding large amounts of electrons and positrons together, which would collide and via the exchange of a proton then create a quark and an antiquark. But what they were really detecting were jets of hadrons, i.e. particles, new hadrons, like new protons and neutrons being created as a result of electron-positron interactions. So I'm just led to speculate about this. I'm just wondering to what extent, first of all, is the positron potentially a chameleon particle or something like this? And it's not really antimatter. It's not really an opposite to a matter that annihilates. It's more like a W particle or something like this, which is just masquerading as an electron under certain conditions, under certain circumstances, and it seems to change its spin in much the same way as I believe that if you put two W's very close to one another, their masses will sort of cancel out, and you'll get something very much like a photon field, where you get a massless, chargeless, spin 2 object, which is very much like a graviton, which is the graviton, whereas the individual particles, I suppose if they remain individual particles and don't form a composite, each individual particle would look very much like a photon. So the particle exchange between electrons and protons, which fundamentally binds all the atoms together, it binds all the electron densities to all the nuclei in the universe, of course. This is something very much like, we predict that it's the exchange of photons between electrons and protons, but why can't it be W particles? It's just the same thing. We would never be able to tell the difference. I think like what we're dealing with at a more fundamental level is the presence of charge in bosonic matter, which creates possibilities. It creates challenges also for understanding, because if we put two heavy charged bosons together, say W particles, I believe we would uncover this sort of behaviour, this sort of shape-shifting chameleon particle-like behaviour. And that could be what's going on at a very fundamental level, rather than, you know, it's a different particle, like, oh, it's a new particle, oh, it's a new particle. Or is it really the same particles or classes of particle shape-shifting, sort of, and pretending to be different particles? Or, and like something like, is the electron, sorry, the positron, could that be something like, well, could it be something like an electron that has swallowed two W plus particles somehow, but the mass of the W particles is hidden for some reason, it's not apparent, but it gives the electron a positive charge, and then this photon emission is not really the emission of a photon so much as it's the emission of a W plus, or a W, and then the electron becomes neutral and disappears to somewhere else in the universe because of non-locality, and then these quarks show up and you get jets of hadrons produced because the W just, its huge energy, its huge mass just transforms into these jets of hadrons. Could it be something like that going on also? I don't know. I think we should always question what's been established and never fall into dogma, and always be open to new suggestions, new ideas, new thinking. Because, well, I want to write an email about this to a professor of physics. And I know exactly who it's going to be. It's going to be someone who works at Cambridge's Department of Applied Mathematics and Theoretical Physics, and talking about this idea of a chameleon particle. It's something I'm really quite interested in now. think about these sorts of processes, since I haven't given much thought to quarks really, and are quarks real? I don't know. But they sort of need to be real because you do sort of need the residual strong interaction to be able to latch onto something. And if it's just like a particle, a fundamental particle, without there being something more fundamental within it, then yeah, it would behave like a neutrino, and it would just fall out of the nucleus all the time, and we wouldn't have any stable atoms in the universe. So, for one thing, what I wanted to say in this video is, I think by the same logic that the residual nuclear force is allowed to happen in nature, I think neutrons do fall in gravitational fields, and I still think gravitational fields are ultimately electron densities. And I haven't quite died on the hill that I planted my flag on, planted this particular flag on, I planted my flag on this particular hill, and I'm not quite dead yet. I think, I still think there's life in the old dog of this theory yet. I don't know. I need to think a lot more about this. Well, no, I'm not convinced antimatter exists. That's the other thing. Why can't we create matter by some equivalent process if it is indeed antimatter? And why isn't antimatter just some new behaviour of matter, some new way in which matter behaves? Or what do we say? We can create matter from energy. That's the point of this, I think. Which is fine. That works by general relativity. You're not getting something for nothing that way. You can create quark and anti-quark pairs, but really, how do you know it's really an anti-quark? How do you know that? Why? Because the maths works out. Why wouldn't the maths work out with just what you're doing? You're creating loads of quarks. You're creating jets of hadrons. You're not creating the hadrons that are created. Are they anti-hadrons? Are they anti-protons and anti-neutrons? Do they annihilate? I don't know how in-depth materialism I'm looking at even some of the time, but I just try to get the best sources possible. This is what I'm looking at the moment is just an overview from the Open University, but it doesn't say anything in here about them becoming anti-hadrons. Various hadrons. Yeah, but. So, I remain unconvinced by the existence of antimatter. What I want to do, as I've said before in other videos, I want to make the standard model leaner, and I want it to be as minimalist as possible. I want it to do everything we need it to do, including gravity, including understand gravity, but with the fewest necessary assumptions. You need to figure out, try and take things out. This is the Elon Musk process of developing rockets and things. I'm trying to apply to this. Figure out what you can take out and what you can't. Then put something back in again, isn't it? So first take things out, see if it works. If not, then put it back in. That's how it's to be as minimalist as possible. That's how you create beautiful things. And a model should be beautiful ultimately. It shouldn't contain anything redundant. And I just suspect antimatter is redundant. So I don't like it. Why can't the positron just be a particle of matter? It's just a new particle of matter that gets annihilated by an electron. It doesn't really get annihilated by an electron so much as it gets. If you slam them in together at near light speed, then it's going to release a very high energy photon, which, let's face it, like a very high energy photon, a photon with a lot of mass, which is a very advanced idea in physics. The idea of the photon having mass. Sorry, which I still believe photons do have mass. Then that's just a W minus. That's just a W naught particle. Sorry, a Z particle. I mean, not a W. Yeah, that's just a neutral current, basically. And then out of that neutral current come quarks, eventually. For whatever reason that happens. The breaking of chiral symmetry or something. But, you know, it's difficult, this stuff. It's very tricksy stuff, theoretical physics. It's very difficult. But yeah, I do believe in roughly these ideas of chameleon particles and particles masquerading as other particles. So thank you for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye. Love you lots.